McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode. Today, we have a special guest, a linebacker, that former Tennessee Titan, Rocky Boiman. How you doing today, sir?
Alex, I'm fired up, man. Good. I'm doing great. I'm living up here in Cincinnati, but I love where I live. But my second favorite place on earth is Nashville down there. Such great people, such great fans. To join that organization back in 2002, and when it was still kind of young, and be a part of that city as it was grown, and now it's, of course, just blown up big. And but so many great people, so many great teammates, and so many great fans down there.
Definitely, man. And let's talk a little bit about, you were born and raised in Cincinnati, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep, born and raised in Cincy.
And how was that growing up, and when did you kind of develop your love for football?
Yeah, it's I started football, playing tackle football when I was 7, and it was one of those deals. My dad came home. He did road maintenance for the township, and they had like a flyer they put out at like the firehouse or something, and he brought it home and said, here's their talking about football signups and stuff, and I was like, I'm in, right? And kind of even before he had asked my mom if if it was a good idea or not. Said okay, and I went up. I remember I went to a practice, brought me to a practice. Again, we're talking 7 years old, and I looked out there and I was like, I got to do this. So by that next day, I met with the coach and had equipment and was out there and been playing football ever since. I started playing football when I was 7 and retired at age 30. So football has been a big part of my life, and now, of course, I talk about it, doing my ESPN college football stuff and my radio gigs. So I don't know a world without football, and I hope I never do.
That's awesome, man. And like I said, that's one of the most important things I love seeing especially after the game of football, because again, football is not everything, it's not your whole career, but you kind of made it your after career anyway. And there's a few football players that, are doing their thing, and it's really nice to see. I had Jason McCourty on. So, Jason doing his thing, Kevin Carter as well, analysts and doing their thing. So it's nice to see you guys still get to give back to the community and do your own thing and enjoy what you're doing still. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I'm fortunate to be in the media, but even if I didn't do that, I would still I still have a great love of football. I mean, probably one of the favorite things I do is I coach. I coach my sons. I got an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they're knee deep in it. And I coach their fall team. I coach the 7-on-7 team, and just all the great lessons and things that football teaches. Yeah, that's what I tell parents all the time. It don't matter. Yeah, I'm sure you want to, kids want to get scholarships and parents want their kids to go to college and do all that. But just to have the privilege to play high school football and the things you learn by being in that environment, football is hard. It's not. I always tell people, it's fun to go to basketball practice, right? Let's shoot some layups. Let's do this. Baseball, let's shag some fly balls, hitting the cage is fun. Football is not all the time fun, but it's rewarding. It's more rewarding than fun. Of course, it's a fun game to play, but there's sacrifices that have to be made, and I love everything about it.
Definitely, man. Now, talking about you saying playing when you were 7 and stuff, get to high school. At that point of your life, did you go, hey, yeah, I eventually want to become a professional football player?
Yeah, it was more kind of stage wise for me. I knew that, I loved it from the start, and, I was pretty good at it, early on. And so for me, and I grew up a Notre Dame fan, it was always like, I want to go to Notre Dame and play football and be a captain. And, because during those late 80s, early 90s, Notre Dame was the real deal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I told told my second grade teacher, I remember it, and I told my eighth grade teacher that I was that I wanted, my goal was to go play football for the University of Notre Dame and be a captain and all that, and I was blessed and fortunate to have people along the way that helped facilitate that. Great parents, my dad really worked on me and pushed me hard. Mom was, I mean, just the best in the world and supporting me all the way through to this day, even, so yeah, just having that dream and putting I was never afraid to put in the work to make it happen. And there's things that happen along the way that may kind of damage you a little bit, but you get back on course if you truly love it, and was able to make it come true.
Nice, man. And to not only do that, like you said, one of your dreams was to become captain again senior year, college. You got to do that. How was that program? And do you remember that experience, in college, especially getting older and playing football for Notre Dame?
Yeah, no, it was the dream of a lifetime, and but it was tough up there, and there was some tough years at Notre Dame that I had to go through. We had my freshman and junior year, we had good teams. My sophomore and senior teams, we didn't so much. And Notre Dame is a unique animal, man. It's with the kind of the pressures of the school. Like you really got to go to class there. You know what I mean? Like I'd be in locker rooms and guys be talking about classes they didn't have to take and this and that. I didn't have any of those stories, right? Like it was hard. Like, and it was, I always say this, Notre Dame it made me a man just with the amount of time management and just, it was tough. And to do that schedule, and all college football players have that grueling schedule of workouts and treatment and football practice and school and all that. But I think it's even more elevated at Notre Dame. So, in a lot of ways, it prepared me for the NFL and the expectations and the time management things that you
Mhm.
got to do to be a successful pro. So, yeah, maybe not always the best. I always say this too. Sometimes Notre Dame it wasn't the best place to go to, but it was a great place to be from. You know what I mean? And just the network of people you meet, and the experiences that I was able to have, both good and bad, that helped form me into the man I am.
Definitely, man. And talking about that program, that football program, and I mean, let's talk a little bit about, Ohio State versus Notre
Yeah.
Dame. Again, something that kind of people saw coming, some people didn't. What do you think about the program considered for what you saw when you were there? Like how much it's grown and stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it, and I mean this year was a humongous step forward. I mean for the longest time, even from when I was there up until even last year, Notre Dame was, in my opinion, again, as somebody who lives and breathes college football for my job, I was, Notre Dame was always, kind of on that glass ceiling. As there was like there were some elite teams up here, and Notre Dame wasn't a part of that. They just weren't, for a lot of reasons. I always, I always say this too, Alex. People always tell me like how, for over the years, like, why is it Notre Dame better? And my response was always, how are they still so good? There's a lot of things working against Notre Dame.
Mhm.
Geographically isolated
Yeah.
place of the country, colder than hell. Um, you know, not a not a lot of good looking sorority girls running around. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to go to class. Like it's not the easiest, most attractive environment in the world, But so it has a lot of things working against it, but obviously it has a lot of things working for it too. Just the history, and I was always so into that sort of aspect of it, and then to see Marcus Freeman come in and kind of combine, still kind of paying homage to the great history of Notre Dame, but also now taking it into the present, right? And taking it into what college football is now and the kind of players coach that he is and how well he recruits, how hard his players play for him. I'm so happy to see that elevation because again, it's not easy. It's not easy at that place. And but couldn't be happier with what Marcus has done with it.
Definitely, man. Now, going from college to the pros, how was your pro day? I know I talked to a lot of these college kids and they're coming out, and especially I work in the airport, so I see how, and the Shrine Bowl was here in
Yeah.
Dallas. So I see them all coming out, and I mean, they're excited, they're ready to go. How was your experience with your pro day?
Pro day was it was great. I mean, I remember everything about it. So I had gone to the NFL, the combine,
Hmm.
and I had a great combine and all the testing stuff like the 40, the 5, 10, 5 and broad, high jump, all that stuff. I'd really done well. I had a great combine. And I think that really helped me because I had a really fantastic junior year, but my senior year, for whatever reason, I had a little bit of an injury I dealt with.
Hmm.
It wasn't near as good. So I had to perform to kind of show I belonged there and could be an NFL player. So I did that. But then at my pro day, still, I'm sure the coaches still wanted to see more in terms of moving around as a linebacker and things like that. And I remember, God, I remember Lovey Smith working me out. I had a private workout with him
Okay.
when he was with the Bears, and kind of learning some things from him. And yeah, it's just, it was a, you hear about all those pro days and what goes on at, but to experience it and to have to, it's your time to shine, and you can either shine or you don't. And so you got to elevate yourself to the occasion. And fortunately, I was able to do that and put on a good show for the coaches and stuff. And I think it helped me get me drafted.
Definitely. Now, was there any team coming out of college that you say you're from Cincinnati? Were you a Bengals fan by any chance, or you kind of just at that point of your career just wanted just to get picked up by a team and go with it?
Yeah, I mean, look, you just want to play in the league, right? It doesn't matter. But it's funny. I thought I was going to go talking to my agent.
Hmm.
I thought I was going to go about in the fourth round. It could be anywhere from the kind of low third to the fifth kind of thing, and I wound up going in the end of the fourth. But it's funny, Alex, because I remember meeting with the Titans at the combine,
Okay.
meeting with Jim Schwartz, but I never felt like that
That
was the team was going to draft. I thought it was going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I met with Dick Vermeil for like an hour. He loved me, and he was head coach there. And even talking to my agent, he was like, I really think Kansas City is going to be the team. Them and Baltimore. Of all the teams, and I talked to probably all of them.
uh-huh.
Those two teams are the ones I thought, okay,
Okay.
so anytime Kansas City and Baltimore came up, I was like, okay, here we go. And then it didn't happen. And you go through the draft, and I remember we had this little tiny house in Ross, Ohio. And so it's me and my mom and dad. My mom, God love her, she had like a legal pad and wrote down every draft pick, where they were from, where they went, what position and what grade. I mean, the whole thing, right? Like, so naturally, as it goes on, every player does. As a linebacker gets drafted, I'm like, man, I'm better than that guy. You know what I mean? So you start to get a little nervous, a little this and that, and the phone ain't ringing. And then all of a sudden, the phone rang, and and again, this is like a house phone. Like,
Yeah.
I had a cell phone, but people didn't use those really back then. And it was the house line, and I remember it was a 615 area code, and I had no idea what that was.
Gotcha.
And to this day, Alex, I don't remember the first person I talked to because I was so like just and the voice was like, "Hey, Rocky, how you doing?" I'm like, "Great." And he's like, "All right, well, we're gonna go, so and so from the Titans, we're gonna go ahead and draft you right here." So I'm talking on the phone, and my parents are like, "What's going on? Who is it?" And I'm pointing to the TV like, "They're gonna draft me. They're gonna draft me." And then, it was announced with the whatever pick, Titans take Rocky Boiman. My mom and dad, my dad, who's a man's man. I've seen him cry probably 5 times in my entire life. They all fall to the floor and, so happy. And, it was amazing, just to get that call. And then I remember talking with Gunther Cunningham. I do remember that.
Okay.
Gunther Cunningham, right after that, who was my linebacker coach. And, I remember him telling me, "Hey, we're drafting you for a reason. We want you to come here and compete, and you got to hit the ground running. Let's go." So I was just tremendously excited, and with Nashville being kind of close to Cincinnati, about 4.5 hours, I thought that was great. Beggars can't be choosers, but I didn't wasn't necessarily excited about going out to a West Coast team or something like that. What I mean, to kind of be close to home was great. So yeah, it was just a wonderful draft day experience.
Definitely. Do you remember your first interaction with a certain player from the team? Like if you had looked back and thought about the teammates that you had, with in Tennessee, Does anyone that kind of come to mind like automatically?
Well, I just remember being in the locker room, and you're still like, because you're still kind of a kid, right? I mean, and you're and all of a sudden around these players that you've watched for a long time, and all of a sudden you look around, you're like, oh my God, that's Javon Curse down there, and and there's Kevin Carter, and then there's Steve McNair. Oh my God, there's Eddie George. Like, holy shit, somebody pinched me, right? Like, and then obviously being part of the linebackers, Keith Bullock, my locker was right next to him,
Mhm.
and he was very very kind to me and nice to me, and still one of my very very good friends to this day. And I think with like what you have to do as a player is early on, you got to show you belong. You got to earn,
Mhm.
because everyone's looking at you and saying, okay, you think you belong here, but do you? So you got to come out. You got to be tough. And I right away in my head, I was like, I got to show I belong. I got to be as physical as hell. I got to run around. I got to make plays, and I got to kind of earn my keep. And you do that by being tough. And there were some players in my draft class that didn't earn that, and it really hurt them. It really hurt their kind of their standing in the locker room. But yeah, being around those guys and just so many great guys, especially even that linebacker room, it was fun.
Definitely, and especially that linebacker core. I'm assuming you gravitated obviously towards them the most just because of the leadership and talking about Keith. I've had Bo Scaife on, and he explained how much of a presence, a locker room presence, Keith Bullock was because he always spoke his mind and stuff. Is that something that you took as kind of like a learning point and stuff, and just kind of observe?
Yeah, well, I mean, at that time, Keith wasn't. I mean, my rookie year wasn't necessarily a locker room leader yet because he was in his third year and he had done some special teams but he wasn't a full-time starter yet. But I mean, that year he wound up going to the Pro Bowl, right? Like, so that was his kind of coming out that year, and then after that, but you could see the kind of player he was. Sometimes he was a hard player to watch and try to imitate because he was just so gifted. I mean, he would just do stuff, and you're like, I don't know if I can do that, but um, he was also a very smart player, and it's almost like he didn't want you to think he was. It was weird, like he didn't want you to think he was like a smart player. I don't
Mhm.
know if he wanted you to think he was just a great athlete and he was out there, but he was such a smart, savvy player who knew the game, and I really watched that, and I respected that, and I respected how he approached every day and worked so hard the way he did to prove himself, and that kind of rubbed off on me, and we became again great friends, and that whole linebacking room was great. It was Keith, it was Randall Godfrey, remember him, Frank Chamberlain, God rest his soul. Brad Castle came in with me. Trying to think, Peter Sermon
Okay.
was in that locker room as well. So we had a lot of good dudes, a lot of great football players in that room.
Definitely. Now, your defensive coach was Jim Schwartz,
Jim,
right?
yeah, Jim Schwartz. Yep.
Now, how was your relationship with him, and how was his defensive style implemented, and how it kind of benefited you as a
Yeah,
linebacker?
yeah. So I mean, I was blessed to have two great, coaches right out of the gate. Obviously, Jeff Fisher was a great coach, but I'm talking day to day.
Hmm.
Jim Schwartz is a D coordinator, but then Gunther Cunningham, my linebacker coach. I wouldn't have lasted as long in the league if I hadn't had him early. Because again, kind of talking about my senior year and not really having a great year in college, or the year that I wanted. I came out. I kind of suffered a little bit from lack of confidence,
Okay.
and Gunther had a way of like really instilling confidence in me. I'm like, holy shit, like this guy's been a coach for like 30 years, and he believes in me. He
Mhm.
believes in my talent. He believes in my athleticism. If he does, why shouldn't I? You know what I mean? So he was so integral in delivering that, and watching how he operated meetings. And I mean, the stories that could come out of that are, I mean, he was such a hilarious guy too, but super intense. So, really, having him believe in me really helped. And then same thing with Jim. He really believed me as well. And, early on, got me involved and, saw that I could, I was athletic and could make some plays, and got me involved in some third down packages and things like that. And try to find a way to utilize my skills.
Definitely. Now, going from, being with the Titans and stuff, do you have maybe like a favorite? We'll do this. We'll do favorite play, and then we'll do favorite memory as a Tennessee Titan.
Oh man, I mean, God, we could do this forever. It was just great, my rookie year when we go to the AFC Championship game, we wound up losing um, I almost called them Las Vegas, but the Oakland Raiders, out there, and but just how good of a team we had, and again, coming from Notre Dame my senior year, we went like 5-7, so it was like, we didn't have the quarterback, we just didn't have the horses, right? Now you look around, you're like, oh my God, this is what a
Mhm.
football team is supposed to look like. That's what a quarterback should look like. And Steve McNair and how tough he was and how great of a player he was. And that's what a running back should look like. Eddie George. In the defense, my God, you got Kevin Carter on one end, you got, Javon Curse on the other end, you got, Albert Haynesworth in the middle, Henry Ford in the middle. It's like if you're playing linebacker, like, this is wonderful, right? You got Lance Shoulders on the back end, Tank Williams, who was in my draft class, great safety, great friend. And it was like I mean, just to they have the honor to be on such a great team of great players, coming off what I had experienced my senior year was like, a little left to be desired there. That was fantastic. Just and then my rookie year to go all the way to the AFC Championship game. Um, just to be a part of those games, and that team was great. Trying to think of some other, I mean, individually, the Pittsburgh game my second year, where I was a backup and wound up coming in. Peter Sermon got hurt, and I came in and had a fantastic game. Got AFC Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, that kind of put me on the map. I had a good rookie year. I set the franchise record for special teams tackles in a season with 26. But then, wanted more, wanted to be a linebacker and all that sort of stuff and make my mark there. So have that moment was cool and watch my teammates be excited for me. I think that was great. But it was more just, just the locker room and the how tight knit we were. I really believe it was a tight knit team from, offense, defense, I mean, on defense, like some guys would get together and they're like 20 guys going to dinner on a Friday night. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like because we all really liked and respected each other.
Nice, man. Nice. Let's talk about that pick six.
Yeah.
That pick six, who was it against? I know it was the Steelers. Who was the quarterback at the time?
Tommy Maddox.
Tommy, you know, back of your head, you know it already, right?
I know who I got 5 NFL interceptions. I know who threw all of them.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, we'll talk about that, but I want to talk about this moment just because I feel like it was one of the. I mean, you had like I said many highlights in your career, but I feel like this one was. I don't know. Maybe it's because it was against the Steelers, and I never liked the Steelers. But I can you go through? Do you remember? You know, um, playing that exact moment and how it went down, and no.
Yeah, I can take you through the whole thing, and I have a book called Rocky's Rules, and I write about this in the book under the chapter "Prepare and One Day Your Chance Will Come."
Mhm.
And my going into my just to kind of lay it all, going into my second year again, I had a really nice rookie year, but going to my second year, I wanted to be the starter, but it just wasn't going to happen. Peter was in front of me, he was playing well. But so there was a point where I kind of got frustrated, but I wound up getting my head together and always still prepared as if I was going to be the starter, right? Would always stand, whether I was in or not, stand back behind the defense and make sure I got my checks and make sure I know what's going on, make sure I study the game plan and all that. And that's what happened that day is, he goes down early in the first quarter and boom, all of a sudden I'm in. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And early on, I didn't play that well, like for the first like series or two, because you're kind of like like a little bit in shock and a little bit emotional. But I remember thinking, man, I deserve to play well because I studied, I know what I'm doing, I'm prepared for this. It wasn't like, oh my God, I wish I would have studied what they do on first down during. No, I did. You know what I mean? So I was ready to go, and then settled in and wound up playing really well. And I mean, the first thing happened, I actually had a safety. Tackled him for a Max for a safety in the end zone, so that was cool. And had a bunch of tackles, and then yeah, we the defense we ran was oversteal or trap, and Tank Williams came in on a blitz and forced a bad throw. Dove down, got it, and ran it in, and that was it, man. And then after the game, I all my teammates and stuff were so excited for me. But yeah, that was probably my biggest game, certainly of my career with the Titans.
Gotcha, man. And talking a little bit about, we talked about the Titans. You went to several teams, right? I mean, you're a Super Bowl champion winner. Unfortunately, sorry with the Colts, but hey,
I know.
it's all right. You got yourself a chip playing with, Peyton Manning. How was that team when you guys won the Super Bowl, and how was that?
It was great, and
Mm.
I'd actually just part of my story. I was with the Titans for 4 years, and I was a free agent, and they I wound up signing with Dallas, and signed a 3 year deal with Dallas, and long story, but I wound up getting released right at the end of training camp, and I was just crushed, man. I was like, man, I just hell with it. I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but
Mhm.
I got three phone calls after that. One was from Nick Saban, who was with the Dolphins. They wanted to sign me. And then the second was Jeff Fisher. He's like, "Hey, come on back to the Titans." And I love Nashville. I love the team, but they just signed David Thornton, and I
Mhm.
was like, I don't, I still want to try to take my shot here to whatever. And then Tony Dungy with the Colts called me, and at that point I was kind of a little bit wounded, with going through getting released and getting cut and stuff. So I was like, well, Indy's an hour and a half from my house, that'd be good. And to be honest, Alex, having played against Peyton Manning for 4 years, I was like, let me see what it's like playing on the same team as him. And it wasn't bad. You know what I mean? It wasn't bad. And again, I love the Titans with all my heart, but it was a fun couple years.
Yeah, that's good. And you're not the first or the last defensive player to say that. It's funny though. When I ask, especially when I get, a defensive guy on, I'm like, hey, out of all the quarterbacks, who would you say? And they always say, I mean, I had Bernard Pollard on, Gerald McGrath, and they said, yeah, Payton was, yeah, it was different. It was
Yeah,
different.
because he just knew whatever he did or whatever you did, he was going
Yeah,
to check out
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And I mean, I just remember, kind of vaguely remember like all the game plans, and Schwartz would come and say, all right, well, this time we're going to move all around and we're going to shift and we're going to, post snap, and that didn't work. And then the next time it's like, all right, next time he comes out and he's doing all this stuff, we're just going to stay right there. We're just going to go, whatever. We're not moving. And he kind of would figure that out too. But we had good success against the Colts, especially my my rookie year. I think we won both those games, if I'm not mistaken. It kind of went downhill from there in those 4 years, but yeah.
Um, and then after that, you kind of you went to the Eagles, Chiefs. What was the last team was the Lions? No,
No, I had a year with the Steelers. Well, it was actually, I mean, it was one of being half a season, but my last season was with the Steelers. That was my 8th year, and then yeah, I wound up going to camp. Not really. Like I was done. I was retired. I in my head I'd kind of moved on, and then like the last week of training camp, literally the last day, my agent's like, "Hey, the Lions want to bring you in." I'm like, God, really? You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like because my head I'd kind of moved on. I was trying to find myself, my life post football, and
Mhm.
I remember I went in for one day, and then the last preseason game, and when I'm getting released, and then actually they called during that season and wanted to sign me. But I'd kind of moved on, and anyway, but
You
so
were
it wasn't
mentally
really a
kind of ready of football, kind of.
yeah, that and just some other things I'd kind of worked hard and kind of had going a little bit, and I just didn't feel like I could go back. And again, I'd played football and I wanted to do nothing else, and played with blinders on since I was 7 years old.
Mhm.
But yeah, then at age 31, for whatever reason, I'd you know, kind of had moved on, and that was it.
And how did that transition to your, I guess, second career into like media and being in ESPN? How did that kind
Yeah,
of transpire?
yeah. I mean, look, I'd always felt that I was a student of the game and that I knew the game, you know what I mean? So I always felt like, being an analyst is something I could do because I always paid attention to not just what I was supposed to do, but the scheme and, and all that sort of stuff. So I figured that would play well. And yeah, I mean, media is one of those careers, I'm sure understand a little bit. It's like, there's you don't know how it's going to go, but I went into it and I did a lot of things locally. I mean, I did stuff for 2 years locally without getting a paycheck for none of it,
Oh, wow.
but just doing local sports shows and called my my high school team's games on public access and, did all that and tried to work but a bunch of things I could go into it, but a bunch of things kind of wound up falling into place and got some opportunities and did well with those opportunities. And then, here I am, just finished my 10th year with ESPN.
Wow. And I'm assuming you love it, right? It's 10
I
years.
do, yeah, it's fun. Again, just to do, I like the craft of it. I like starting the week.
Hmm.
Because I don't know if necessarily I'm like the biggest football fan and that I don't sit down on a Sunday and watch games from 1 p.m. to midnight. You know what I mean? Like, but I like the craft of, I mean, I love the game and I like calling the games because especially with what I do, like there's one of like 134 teams that I could get, or two of 134 teams I could get, you know what I mean? So sometimes I'll start the week and sometimes I'm lucky and I get Alabama. And you know a lot about Alabama, right? But sometimes you get a couple schools that you don't really know a ton about, but I like the craft of like, okay, I don't know much about, but damn it, by the end of the week,
I'm
I'm going to be the
yeah.
premier expert on these two teams. That's kind of how I approach it. And then going about all the process and learning about the team and learn the players, learn the scheme and talking to the player, all that sort of stuff and meeting with the coaches is really, really fun. So yeah, I love kind of putting it all together.
Nice, nice, man. All right, so before I let you go, I usually do this for every interview. I usually I'll ask the fans on Twitter, on social media, if they have a question just to kind of be involved. And I have a couple questions that I have fans that wanted to ask you. Now, some of
Yeah.
them we might have covered. And if we've covered it, we kind of go off like that. And
Yeah. Fire
so
away.
so the first one is a group called Transatlantic Titans. They're a group of five guys, all from the UK. Good guys, had them on the show before. They want to know, Rocky, what memories do you have of bringing Monday Night Football studio coverage to the UK from what looked like a nuclear bunker? I'm guessing 10 to 15 years ago.
What an amazing opening question because I mean what they're alluding to is again I'm talking about getting in this hard slog of trying to get involved in the media. I wound up getting a break. I went to the NFL broadcast boot camp, which is like a second career thing the NFL offers, and
Okay.
there's like 26 guys they selected, and you learn everything about the media business. You learn calling games, you learn how to interview, you learn how to do the desk, how to do all that. Well, at the end of the week, they selected one player to go to Europe and do a weekend's worth of games on Sky Network, which is like the European ESPN. So I did that, and it was. I mean, we talk about experience of a lifetime. And when I got, did all that and I came back. And then I never forget, I got a call from a guy by the name of Simon Cross. He was a producer over there. And he said, "Hey, I saw what you did with Sky. And I mean, I thought it was great. How would you like to call the Chiefs Packers game on BBC Radio this week?" And I was like, "You mean the NFL?" He's like, "Yeah, the NFL." Like, because again, I'd call in high school games at that point. And I was like, "Holy shit, yeah, let's do it." And then from there, we wound up doing a series of Monday Night Football kind of studio things
Hmm.
over in Europe, and I kid you not, there was a time period. I think four out of 5 weeks, maybe 4 out of 6, I would fly to Europe. Okay, for like 24 hours. Like I would fly, get off the plane. It's like whatever time it is. Go in. We do a studio show in that little bunker the guy's talking about with Darren Fletcher, who's one of the greatest play-by-play guys. I mean, he's humongous. He's a fantastic guy, and Simon Cross, two of the best people in the world. And yeah, we would do that, and it's from if a Monday Night Football game is at whatever 8 o'clock. So it was like we go on like at 1 in the morning
Yeah, 1 in the morning,
till
right?
like till like 6 in the morning, and then I'd literally would take a car right back to Heathrow, jump on a plane, come back, and then I'd get home and they'd be like, "Man, that was great. You got to come back next week." I'm like, "Okay." So I mean, literally, I mean, I wasn't tracking my airline miles at the time, but I wish I was.
Yeah.
So, but what great memories just doing that show and commentating on it. And so they would we'd do the game and then when they went to commercial, because there's no commercials
Hmm.
with the BBC. Then they'd come to us in the studio and you'd be like, "Oh, here's what happened on that," and Darren and I would break it down, and it was kind of bare bones, but what a wonderful experience. And whoever that was sent that question, and love you guys, man, because that was some fun times. And thank you for listening to it.
There we go, man. That's awesome. We have another person. His name's Titans Fanatic, and I think we answered this might have been. But what is his favorite game as a Titan? Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean that obviously that Pittsburgh game, just from a personal standpoint, was great. The playoff game against Baltimore, winning a playoff game up in Baltimore my rookie year to then go to the AFC title game was great. And Gary Anderson kicking field goals to win the game, and he had the single bar face mask, which was freaking great. Trying to think of some other ones. We played the Colts my rookie year in the RCA Dome,
Mhm.
and obviously the Colts were riding high, and Keith had a play. He came in, blitzed, and caused a fumble, took one back. So we went in there. I remember that game because I was like, okay, this is going to be a great year. I mean, in my rookie year, if people might remember, we won our first game against the Eagles, and then we lost four straight. We
Mhm.
lost four straight games, and then routed off like eight of the last nine or whatever it was, to go to the playoffs and stuff. So the odds were stacked against us, but to win some of those games again, that Colts game I remember, yeah, the playoff game in Baltimore, man, yeah, really some great games.
So we have another one. His name is Matt. Matt wants to know why you ask him why he likes White Claw so much. That's
Well, it's kind of a radio joke because I don't know, my radio partner would, back when White Wall kind of first came out, I kind of mentioned that I liked it or something, and then, everybody on all the callers would just clown me all the time. They'd call and be like, "Hey, when you're drawing your White Claw, Rocky, are you wearing a one piece or a two-piece
uh,
bathing suit?" Like just stuff like just funny, right? So it kind of became my thing, and then I actually got an endorsement by White Claw. So who's laughing now? You
there,
know?
there you
So
go.
no, it was yeah, it was just kind of a funny thing that came about on the radio. Yep.
That's funny, man. That's awesome. Well, Rocky, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate your time, and I know you're a busy man with the busy schedule, so I do appreciate you coming on. I do appreciate the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears that you gave not only me as a fan, but obviously everyone that's watched you in your career. And I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're still doing what you're doing and that you love still doing what you're doing. So, man,
Well, I appreciate that, and it means a lot because I did every time I was on that field, I laid it on the line for the organization and the fans. I truly did. I felt like I was, probably my dad taught. I felt like obligated to do that. You know what I mean? Because you got fans that go and work hard all week, and they use their last dollars of disposable income to buy Titans tickets or buy a jersey or something. So I felt the obligation to play hard for them, and I did. But no, such great fans down there, and I mean, it's a truly a hell of an experience that I got to have, and I thank you for bringing me on. I thought you did a great job with this, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep the Titan Nation going strong here. But I love my time there, and I always will.
all right, man. Thank you so much, Rocky. I appreciate it, buddy. All right.
You're the best, man. Thank you.